Good evening and welcome. You're watching ET Now Startup Central, the first and only daily show in India dedicated to startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Ruchi Bhatia. Over the next 20 minutes, we have a power-packed show lined up for you. Let's straight across, take it to my colleague from Bengaluru, Rahul Dayama. Rahul, the countdown to India's big elections has already begun, with the Election Commission yesterday announcing the poll dates. Perhaps it is the first time they've also clarified on the role of social media in these elections. The poll panel listing series of measures to include model code and political advising to the online mediums as well. Help us understand, take this story forward for us. Social media has found prominent mention in the presser yesterday. What changes for political parties from now on?
Ruchi, of course, there have been indications from the government side also. They are contemplating various legal aspects also to ensure that social media platforms are more accountable. We've seen the parliamentary panel on IT issue summons to Facebook, Twitter, and asking them to answer tough questions. But as you mentioned, it's perhaps for the first time that the Election Commission has outlined measures that online companies, the like of Facebook, Google, Twitter, among others, will have to follow during elections. Because remember, 2019 election will largely also be fought on online mediums. We have 8 crore first-time voters really taking part in the exercise this year. And the fact that India is the largest market for Facebook, one of the biggest market for WhatsApp, among others, is crucial that their role has also to be monitored. Really breaking down the specifics now, candidates will have to declare their social media accounts while they're filing their nominations. All the expenses on maintaining the social media accounts, the hiring the social media team will all be part of the election expenditure. But the big move is also around political advertising, because remember, political parties push a lot of these messages through online platforms, which is not really accounted for. So in this case, all online companies will accept only pre-certified political ads, and platforms will later on go on to share details of the expenditure on political ads with the Election Commission. So clearly, the model code of conduct also of 48 hours of the silence period will apply to online. So this is a massive shift than what has been happening from before. Coming to the challenges, remember, India is a unique market. There's so much of information that really is comes by, especially around elections. Seems like WhatsApp and other apps like TikTok that are gaining prominence in the tier 2, tier 3 markets are not part of it. Trends by paid influencers is something that is not covered. And also about how all of this would really be implemented is something we'll have to wait and watch for. But definitely, elections will look quite different this time, with the role of social media companies now being closely watched.
All right, Rahul, many thanks for getting in all those details. Let's, in fact, take this discussion forward. Joining me on the show is Apar Gupta, also Akash Banerjee, and we have Nikhil Pava also joining us. Gentlemen, many thanks for taking your time out and speaking to us at ET Now. Nikhil Pava, let me first begin with you. Let's begin by talking about the impact of social media in Indian elections. Fake news, misinformation, these kind of issues really force the parliamentary panel on IT as well to summon the top teams at Facebook, Twitter. Facebook and Twitter have also said that they will be closely working with the Election Commission. How tough really is it to monitor any kind of discourse that goes about on social media platforms during the election time?
Well, I think it's impossible to monitor discourse or figure out who's putting out certain information, because we've seen instances of paid influencers or paid entities that get paid anything from 10 to 80 rupees per tweet or per message, who are essentially influencing the trending topics. So the Election Commission by any means will not be able to figure much of this out. This happens through different agencies, and quite often the payments are made in cash. And so I'm not sure about how the Election Commission is going to deal with this aspect. We've also got IT cells which have call center like operations which flood messages into WhatsApp and WhatsApp groups. And even though WhatsApp has done some measures restricting forwarding, it's the waterfall effect, almost like a multi-level marketing format that happens on WhatsApp that influenced the last elections, and it's going to have a disproportionate impact on these elections as well, because let's face it, we have about 40 to 60 million new people coming online in India every year, and for them, their primary experience of media is WhatsApp. Their primary means of communication is WhatsApp. So while it's given people, allowed people to connect with each other, to communicate with each other, campaigning on WhatsApp is going to be impossible to deal with, because it's also encrypted end to end, and it respects privacy, but it also enables this kind of messaging. So I'm not sure how the Election Commission is going to do about these platforms.
In fact, that's absolutely. Nikhil Baba, you've hit the nail on its head, and it's a very tough exercise for the Election Commission to go about and do this. But this time around, they have said that they have an Android platform that they will be using to make sure that any sort of complaints can be, in fact, referred to this Android platform through their apps. Akash Banerjee, let me, take another question from you. Facebook has also promised to the parliamentary panel that identification and location for paid advertisements will be available for users on their separate platform. We have seen how Facebook has expanded their fact-checking network as well. How effective has really this been? Because, the sense that I'm getting from Nikhil Pava is that this entire exercise is too mammoth. It will be very tough for the Election Commission to monitor each and everything, especially what's doing the rounds on WhatsApp.
Sorry, I can't share any more positive news than what Nikhil has already talked about. In fact, it's a little more grimmer. I think that Nikhil was being a little diplomatic. Please understand that the warfare, the information warfare is happening on the social media. All political parties, as a matter of fact, now have understood that traditional mainstream media does not have that kind of reach or impact. And everything is happening in the world of social media, and there are no rules. There is no election commission as far as WhatsApp is concerned. And, just to explain it very easily for your viewers, how this system is so easily malleable. Imagine I am standing for elections tomorrow, okay, and I have a party called the Deshbhakt. The thing is that I have to tell the election commission that, look, I as a party have advertised in so many places. While in reality, that might be just 5%. And the 95% is where I'm investing in my IT teams. I'm investing in influencers, giving them cash. There is no power on earth right now that can stop me from, and this is actually happening, by the way, because if you are on social media, you would know people who are prominent have been given this sort of, leverage, and they are actually talking about politics, whereas they never talked about politics a year ago. So these things are happening, and the Election Commission is absolutely incapable of checking these things. Secondly, there is a big question mark over the intent of the Election Commission, because one of the biggest things that surprised me in the world of politics and campaigning is the last day you will see massive ads in newspapers even after the 48 hours have kicked in. You know why? Because there is a lacuna in the People's Representation Act that says that you can publish ads in newspapers. The Election Commission of India, and I spoke to S.Y. Qureshi recently.
Absolutely.
The Election Commission of India hasn't been able to stop this practice of publication in newspapers. I really don't expect them to really curb digital information warfare.
I totally get your point on that. Akash Banerjee, I totally get your point on that. Let me take that point across to Apar Gupta. Apar, talk to us about, how mammoth this entire election process is going to be. From the implementation level, what is it that the Election Commission will do to ensure that these measures are really put into action? Because the problem really lies in the implementation. The Election Commission has come out with a set of guidelines, but the big question is, will the political parties really follow it to the T?
So it all boils down to enforcement and eventual execution of whatever these guidelines may be. Even if they are inadequate, if the Election Commission has the political will, and that's the first thing to understand, does it have the power and does it have the political will to actually enforce its mandate? And if we presume good faith on that basis, that it is willing to crack down, it is willing to test the full severity of the law and its powers, which include disqualifying a candidate or annulling an election result, then it will set a positive precedent for the subsequent elections to follow. But the very basis of this appears to be a committee which is called the MCMC committee. It expands to the Media Certification and Monitoring Committee, which is both at the district and the state level. Now, alongside the press release, there are also amendments made on who will be a social media expert, which will be a part of the district as well as the state level MCMC committees. However, this is a person who's coming in for the first time, and the MCMC committees, even to former election commissioners, even to people who are very, and we've had these conversations with them over the past few weeks, they don't see a lot of action which comes out of it. They don't see that even the complaints which are made by the MCMC committees actually do result in positive action, or they are taken very sternly. For instance, let's just look at what happened in the state assembly elections a few months back. There were advertisements and there were even election speeches broadcast on television itself, and there were only reprimands and cautions which were sent by the election commission sitting in Delhi itself. So this is a message which needs to be set from the top, that even the guidelines which have been put, which may be inadequate, which may be limited, there is a political will right now in the election commission to enforce them to the full severity, especially against political parties and candidates itself. If it fails to do that, I don't think so we'll be doing much by taking down one or two Facebook posts here and there.
Absolutely. In fact, I think Nikhil Pava has a point to add to that. Nikhil, the fact that, now it all boils down to whether the Election Commission is able to implement, what they've spoken about yesterday or not. In your Facebook post, you've also spoken about some limitations of this proposed measures. Talk to us about that. And, they seriously don't seem to be impacting the likes of WhatsApp, TikTok, that are most popular platforms in rural areas.
So I'll address these one by one, right? Number one, there are ad networks like Taboola and the thousands of ad networks across the globe, and the political parties can use any of these ad networks to advertise and not necessarily disclose the ads to the MCMC. So they're only going after Google and Facebook from an advertising perspective. They are very large, but it's not that people don't have alternatives. They'll just switch their spends to the alternatives, and the Election Commission might never know, and the MCMC will never get to go through those ads. Secondly, in my personal opinion, this prevention of campaigning a few 36 hours before the election or whatever it is, it's in this day and age, in the age of social media, it doesn't make sense, because speeches are going to be sent on WhatsApp even after the campaigning deadline ends. People can just put a video or a link to a video or copy paste a speech that was made a week ago. So campaigning is going to continue no matter what. Why is the Election Commission setting itself up for failure because of that? Apart from that, there are multiple other platforms, like there's Hello, which there is TikTok, there is ShareChat, which are now very, very popular, especially in the tier 2 towns. And all of those apps there's no way that they're not monitoring those. There's no way that they can prevent anyone from campaigning. If I support a political party and I start campaigning on their behalf, I'm not getting paid for it, but how will they stop me from doing it? So the Election Commission is still thinking about this from an old media or a mainstream media point of view. Are they going to then prevent me from campaigning for a candidate that I support? That's censorship effectively, right? No, they have to remove this prevention of campaigning, and I think it should be allowed to continue till people finish voting.
Absolutely. And also, I feel the Election Commission has to come up to speed with the newer media, the new forms of media, the new apps that are available, and be more up to speed with the changing realities. Akash Banerjee, the entire ambit of advertising using social media influencers is really difficult to trace. We have seen what happened in the Cobra Post investigations as well, where a lot of celebs were willing to pass views of political parties as their personal opinion for money. I mean, while this is unethical on one hand, help us understand, in a space like this, just taking that point forward from Nikhil Pava, what action can the Election Commission really take in a situation like this?
Nikhil was mentioning that the Election Commission is thinking from the old media thinking. I don't think that they are even thinking in the old media thinking. Otherwise, they would have at least ensured that they would have moved to curb newspaper advertising within the 36-hour window, which is not. So on the day of polling, when you'll go, you will see massive ads on the day of polling on newspapers. So we haven't been able to even curb traditional media. Now, the problem as the new media, there are two things on digital. You can control one bit, you can't the other. The influencers, it's happening. People are being influenced. They are being given money, whether be it cash, kind, etc., etc. That's happening. Maybe you can't prevent that. But there are these armies. There are these troll farms that are working. It is possible for IT companies to work and identify a particular IP, a particular region from where these tweets are regularly originating. Can you track down habitual offenders? Can you track down habitual IPs? Can you find patterns with people? The answer is yes. Is there, again, a political will, as Apar was talking about? I don't think so. And is there an election commission that is as strong as the times that we have seen with Lindo or with Station? I don't think so. When the election commission itself is so unsure when it's announcing the dates, I am not quite sure that they would be able to crack the whip. I wouldn't use that word. But yes, if you're asking me technically, is it possible to find patterns and to clamp down on the biggest offenders? It is. It won't happen, though.
Apar Gupta, just taking the point of Akash Banerjee forward, looks like the Election Commission still has to come up to speed with the changing scenario. But can the Election Commission really do much at this point of time? We're just 10 weeks away from the elections. What is it that really has to change on ground? We saw what happened in the United States during their elections. Facebook was in the midst of a lot of controversy, talking about how Russia could have possibly, played a huge part in influencing the elections in the US. They were in the midst of controversy. What can these big social networking websites or perhaps the Election Commission do now, just 10 weeks ahead of the general elections?
So there are two parts I'd like to answer to this. One is that what it can do immediately, but also this is the new normal. Elections are not going away. State assembly elections are going to be coming up through the calendar years, and digitized society is possibly just going to increase, as Nikhil was pointing out. Large number of Indian people are coming online every year. So in terms of the short term, what the Election Commission can do better, I guess, it's that it's especially, the MC committees that it's forming, or also the social media reporting mechanisms where it's insisting on, should be more transparent and accountable. And this is meaningfully to be revealed to people, the wider public, at a weekly level, if not a daily level. This will help increase confidence. This will also help people, support this mission of the Election Commission. Of course, all of this needs political will. The second, much more larger question, which always comes up in these debates about technology, media, political parties, and the Election Commission, and even predates a lot of the fake news conversation, is that what should we do? And I think a lot of this problem is starting because there is no regulation itself of political parties. Political parties to a large extent are not regulated by the Election Commission. The Election Commission actually just regulates elections, and political parties to a large measure, beyond the allocation of the symbols, are left ungoverned. They are operating without a significant level of oversight, and it is because of the IT cells, the capabilities they have built in-house as well as through contractors externally. What we see is a perpetual flood of misinformation, voter manipulation, and ideological biases, sowing divisions in society. This happens all through the year. It's not only an election problem. So what we maybe need to do is engage a little much more systematically and look at where the problem is starting from. And I hate to say that, but it's political parties.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The buck really stops with political parties. Akash Banerjee, the role that political parties have to play has to be much more. The point that was being raised by the other panelists, whether Facebook goes ahead and labels ads as paid media, paid for by or published by, at the end of the day, having an election integrity officer is not going to help until and unless the political discourse really changes. And day by day, we are seeing how political discourse has become the problem rather than these social media websites. They are just, perhaps disseminating what people are really talking about. Don't you think the bigger problem, of course, is the kind of polity that we are into?
That question really lies with the media and the public. When there is a public outrage, when the public gets to know, when the public is told what is happening with them and how they are being brainwashed, then it matters. So when I go for these conferences and I tell people that this is how literally, where do those messages come from, and ask people, and they will suddenly, the light bulb will go in their minds. Where are these messages in their WhatsApp message box coming from? It's not you and I sitting and making them. So there are people who are being paid to make these political messages. So clearly, when they are told this, then it happens. A lot of media houses are now investing in fake news busting shows. That happens unless and until there is a pushback. The HUL ad is an amazing example of how there has been a popular pushback that, no, there is nothing wrong with this ad. Don't try to divide us. When these things start happening, that is when there will be a pushback. To expect that political parties will suddenly turn a new leaf and say, no, we are all going to be honest, not going to happen. It's going to be the public and it's going to be the media that is going to raise the awareness. Maybe then there'll be a little bit of a pushback. But I am not expecting any miracles all said and done from the Election Commission.
All right, a public and media has to play an integral role in ensuring that there's no misinformation in the system. Nikhil Pahwa, if you can come in on that, when we look at what happened in 2014 versus now, we're also seeing a lot of content being pushed through and also being pushed back, a lot of misinformation being pushed back. How do you really see this change of trend from 2014 to 2019?
Well, I think what started in 2014 was, rather 2012 onwards, was this increase in political messaging on WhatsApp. Especially a lot of Pappu jokes were being sent at that point in time. Surprisingly enough, I'm not seeing many of those now, but we've seen an escalation of more political commentary or more polarization happening on WhatsApp groups and interactions with friends and family. I think it's upon each and every one of us to push back against very biased political commentary or what is blatantly misinformation that is being sent on our groups. It's on each and every one of us to push back against it, and it's the only way we're going to basically stop this, because people are reacting in an emotional manner and not really thinking about it. If you start questioning them, if you ask them to rationalize what they're doing, they might take a step back. I've in fact, at times when there's too much of political commentary that's going on and it's not based on any real facts, I've ended up putting a message out, at times even quitting groups. And I think we have to get back to normal, where we have civil, intelligent discourses on politics, because many people are not even thinking about the messages, not even reading them properly before they send them across. We have to be very, very careful where it's going, because this polarization cuts really, really deep. It's dividing society. In instances, it's dividing families. And it's here to stay by the looks of it, because there are parties which are benefiting from this polarization.
All right, on that note, we're completely out of time on this edition of the show. Nikhil Pahwa, Apar Gupta and Akash Banerjee, many thanks for taking your time out and speaking to us about this very important issue. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Startup Central. Many thanks for watching.